Hello, it's a Snark. Thanks for joining me. This video has a little backstory. I am a fan of Pie Parrot, who started her YouTube channel just over a year ago. The first video she did was about the wonky donkey, and this donkey turned out to be a spunky, hanky, panky, cranky, stinky, dinky, lanky, honky, tonky, winky, wonky donkey. Hee-haw! To celebrate the first anniversary of her channel, she posted a video about the grinny granny donkey, who was a grinny granny plunky plinky swanky clinky clanky zonky donkey drinky clunky donkey. Hee-haw! Link to both the videos are in the description. Now, I posted a comment in the last video where I called Pie Parrot Pippie. She is called Pip, so Pippie is not too far-fetched. I then created a little story in which I called her wait for it, a Kippy, Hippy, Strippy, Nippy, Pippie, and more, in the comments. Someone suggested that this be read by Blue Marble Science, and I really hope that this will materialise. My suggestion was, go to Conspiracy Cats and ask him to read the whole story in his beloved Chatbox Travels voice. Cats said yes, and when Cats says yes, he provides, he delivers. Cats read the short version, but I was able to create the Pie Parrot grow-as-you-go style out of his MP3 and the different versions of it, and this video is the result. Sit down, relax, and simply enjoy.
There was a sweet Pippie who lived in Scotland. It gets cold there quite often. It was a nippy Pippie. There was a sweet Pippie who lived in Scotland. It gets cold there quite often. But at the end of the day, she would get warm in her bed. But first, she had to strip. She was a strippy nippy Pippie. There was a sweet Pippie who lived in Scotland. It gets cold there quite often. But at the end of the day, she would get warm in her bed. But first, she had to strip. Sometimes she would wear clothes from the 60s. Then, she was a hippie strippy nippy Pippie. There was a sweet Pippie who lived in Scotland. It gets cold there quite often. Now, what did she do then? At the end of the day, she would get warm in her bed, but first she had to strip. Now, from a practical standpoint, that makes no sense. If you want to get warm, you put more clothes on. You don't start taking them off. I don't know what the education's like in Scotland. I don't know what kind of stuff they see on TV that's influencing them, what the science magazines are like, but that, from a scientific standpoint, makes no sense whatsoever. She'll be putting more clothes on. Sometimes she would wear clothes. She'd only sometimes wear clothes. What about the rest of the time? That's odd. She loved short afternoon kips. She was a kippy, hippy, strippy, nippy, Pippie. There was a sweet Pippie who lived in Scotland. It gets cold there quite often. But at the end of the day, she would get warm in her bed. But first, she had to strip. What kind of book is this? Has it got pictures? My mum told me not to read books like that. Sometimes she would wear clothes from the... Sometimes she would wear clothes. I don't know what this is all about. Why is she always taking her clothes off? This makes no sense. Anyway, she'd wear some strippy clothes from the 60s. I'm totally confused at this point. She loves short afternoon kips. Right, she has a sweet nature, but when cut off on the road, she might flip someone off. She was a flippy, kippy, hippy, strippy, nippy, Pippie. Hello, just want to say there was a sweet Pippie who lived in Scotland. It gets cold quite there. Really often, really cold. I mean, they could cut diamonds. Like, I've never had my nips as hard, really cold. It was a nippy Pippie. Yeah, I know the feeling. But at the end of the day, she would get warm in her bed. But first, she had to strip. Sometimes she would wear clothes from the 60s. She loved short afternoon kips. And you know what? That went down really badly during her spell as an afternoon bus driver. Her passengers really didn't appreciate that. She has a sweet nature, but when cut off on the road, she might flip someone off. Oh, she might flip someone off, might she? Yeah. Well, I hope they don't flip her off back, because if you know her, she'll probably get the jack out the boot and smash the face in. She's quite scary. She had to keep her hippie clothes in order, so she had to get to zip them up now and then. Oh, so it's really important to make sure that you're zipping things up in Scotland, because if they show, they're not as big as they should be because it's cold. She was a zippy, flippy, kippy, hippy, strippy, nippy, bloody... There was a sweet Pippie who lived in Scotland, and contrary to what anybody believes, Scotland actually is a real place, alright? It does exist. It gets cold there quite often, but at the end of the day, she would get warm in her bed. But first, she had to strip. Sometimes she would wear clothes from the 60s. She loves short afternoon kip. Now, it says here she's got a sweet nature, but when she's cut off on the road, she might flip someone off. Well, she will flip someone off, but if you cut her off on the road, she's going to drag you out the car and run you over first. It's a really, really bad idea. She had to keep her clothes in order, like alphabetical order, or some sort of colour or size order, which is some kind of like OCD, I don't know. So she had to zip them up now and then. I really fail to see the link between zipping your clothes up and having them in some sort of order. I don't get it. You can have your clothes in alphabetical order zipped up or unzipped up, or you can have some zipped and some others zipped. It's not going to break the order. That literally makes no sense. Anyway, she had some fancy 60s clothes. I bet she looked lovely in them, and they were all zipped up, like every single one. Even her shoes and her socks, and even a headband and a woolly hat. They were all zipped up. She was really obsessed with zips. In those fancy 60s clothes, all zipped up, she would do trips. Is that like a drug thing? Through the beautiful countryside. Oh, I'm going to try this now. Ready? Here we go. She was a trippy, zippy, flippy, kippy, hippy, strippy, nippy, pippy. Look at that. M&M, eat your heart out. Boom, gangster's paradise. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, just for the hell of it, I'm going to do a no breath, no punctuation challenge on this text. Even though it's got punctuation, I'm going to pretend a flat earther wrote it and pretend it doesn't have any. Can I get through it in one go without dying? Let's have a look. There was a sweet Pippie who lived in Scotland. It gets cold quite often. She was a nippy Pippie. By the end of the day, she'll get warm in her bed, but first she had to strip. She was a strippy nippy Pippie. Sometimes she would wear clothes from the 60s, and she was a hippie strippy nippy Pippie. So she loved short afternoon kip. She was a kippy hippie strippy nippy Pippie. She had sweet nature, but when cut off on the road, she might flip someone off. She was a flippy kippy hippie strippy nippy Pippie. She had to keep her clothes in order, so she had to zip them up now and then. She was a zippy flippy kippy hippie strippy nippy Pippie. And those fancy 60s clothes all zipped up, she would go do these trips through beautiful countryside. She was a trippy zippy flippy kippy hippie strippy nippy Pippie. The end, yes!